Hello, everyone. I'm going to have to say this, Lori. Happy 2024. When we see each other next, it is going to be 2025.
It is. It is. I know the last show of the year. Welcome, everybody.
So, for those that are joining us for your first time, welcome to our 2024 show. My name is Sadie Uribe, and I am the media producer for the Los Angeles Regional Small Business Development Center. The SBDC is a national program with over 1,000 locations across the country, helping to stimulate economic growth through business advising and development. We offer no-cost services to the local businesses through funding provided by the U.S. Small Business Administration, SBA, and from the California Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, GoBiz. The Los Angeles Regional Small Business Development Center network serves small businesses throughout Los Angeles, Santa Barbara, and Ventura counties. We offer no-cost business advising, meaning that you can meet one-on-one via phone or Zoom to address your specific needs and challenges. And we also offer virtual training and amazing programming such as this show to help and adapt and grow your business. So on that note, Lori, happy last of 2024 show.
Thank you, Sadie. And you know what? I'm going to say this right away because Sadie just reminded me and I don't want to forget. So I'm going to start out with this, Sadie. Okay, speaking of 2025, guys, so what's going to happen is you've got to request me again for 2025, guys. Okay, what am I talking about? Unfortunately, our technology is going to require you to sign up to a new link to say, yes, I want to be part of Small Biz Talk. It is on a yearly rotation, so we have to schedule for another year. And Sadie, tell them what they're going to experience. They're going to get a link and then they apply on the link. Why don't you run through the specifics of this?
Yeah, sure. I mean, actually, it's super easy, but you know how you basically get those little reminders every single week, and then afterwards, like kind of sending you the YouTube link, all that. So you never have to re-register for this show because you're already registered for every show in the series. But now that 2024 is coming to an end, we have to do the re-registration process all over again. So if you look in the chat window, I put the link in there, and this is the link, right? And we're also going to send out a dedicated email blast out to you folks just to kind of give you a reminder because I know sometimes like the holidays, some of our, people might be traveling. So really what it really is just click on the link, register, and then that's it. As soon as 2025 starts, it's going to be exactly like 2024 where you never have to register again, you never have to think about it, but you just got to do the initial registration because this is Zoom. I like to think of us as like a little mini CNN. It's like, right? I'm like, I wish I could have like the little graphics at the bottom. I'd be like, today's guest and this and that, but no, this is Zoom. This is how it be. But you know what? I think it's kind of cool because I know that our frequent people are like, they're already signed up, Lori. I bet you anything if I go, so yeah, so
Leave me. I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Come see me. See, this is a test of love, Sadie. Are they going to come back? Oh, look at Emma just signed up. Are you guys going to come back? Please come back. Sadie and I talked behind the scenes. We were trying to make it different. We were trying to change the technology. And I said, we don't have a choice. We're just going to have to see if they still love us. Oh, look, signed up, Dave. Thank you. That is so awesome. Okay, we got a lot going on today, so let me get started with my little announcements here. And as always, Sadie is going to stick everything into the chat that I'm talking about. So I have my financial literacy series set up for January. That will be continuing. I haven't set up my legal and tax advantages because I'm actually going to work on a couple of my webinars and offer some new things. I'm doing it over the holiday. So don't hold me to this, guys. This is what I'm kind of anticipating I'm going to get done during the holidays. Or I might just take the time off and veg out. Who knows? But I'm wanting to take the the legal and tax advantage webinar and do a separate webinar that delves a little bit deeper into the difference between an LLC and an LLC taxed as an S Corp. Get a lot of questions on that. So I'm thinking about extracting that into its own. And then I'm also playing with the idea of doing a webinar just for the beginning during tax season that's going to be kind of like navigating a Schedule C. LLC, which would be the tax form that both LLCs and sole props utilize. Not trying to make you guys your own tax preparer. No, no, no. But I want you to have an education on these forms, to have a communication with your tax preparer, looking at these forms, understanding them. So that's kind of what I got on the agenda. I'm going to have a couple new webinars that I'll present, at least for the first quarter, unless, like I said, I just take off and do nothing. Okay, well, look at, I didn't even update this. We got Emma Green today. I'm going to be announcing her in a bit. It will return on January 8th. I haven't identified the speaker for January 8th, but the next week we're going to have Samara come on to talk about some HR rules. Even if you have one employee, some things have changed. So I want her to let us know what's going on that. And then I have a couple businesses that are coming on to talk about it. So I got a whole lineup, but I just haven't connected all the dots to make the grand announcement. So join me on the 8th. It may be a Lori talk. We'll see. And then you'll find out all of the programming coming up. I do want, can't end of the year without talking about the BOI. I'm so sick of talking about the BOI, to be honest, but it's still a voluntary submission at this time. And I've talked so much about it, I'm not going to get into detail. You know what I'm talking about on this. But what I wanted to say, and Sadie is going to put the link in there, and I'm going to show you this link in a second, is what had happened. In fact, let me go ahead and grab that link so you can understand what I'm talking about. As you know, I've been chatting forever that the deadline for those who were incorporated prior to this year was coming up, and you had to fill this form out. Well, then there was a court case that went to the Supreme Court that caused for the FinCEN, the U.S. Department of Treasury, to do what's called a stay on it. So they cannot request or require or mandate or deadline, whatever words we want to use so we understand my terminology that I'm talking about. They can't force you with a penalty, etc., to fill the form out. So right now, you can see right here, it says voluntary submission only. And if you click on this, it goes into the details on it. Now, they have already applied for appeals. So I'm not saying it's dead and never will go away. So this is why I want you to have an understanding of this. If you want to fill it out, you can. But if you haven't yet and don't want to, you don't have to. But nevertheless, keep an eye on this, because when they do the appeal, they could turn around and say, now you have to, and put a new deadline. Of course, I'll be on top of it, be telling you about it. But I just want everybody to have, I'm always about maintaining your own power, understanding what's going on, be self-sufficient. So if you're one of those who hasn't done it yet and would have been required, just keep an eye on this link and see what's coming around the corner. Okay, so that's enough. I want to have fun today. Today is about fun, and that is why I have Emma Green on. Emma Green has extensive experience in starting, growing, and running businesses. She started Quads Physical Therapy in 2008 while still working at a job in a hospital. In October 2019, Emma made the leap to 100% in her own business. In January 2022, in response to COVID, Emma Green Programs was formed, forming online courses, programs, and memberships. Now, I have really simplified that whole little bit of paragraphs, Emma, because I want you to fill in the blanks. First of all, thank you so much for coming back on the show. Yeah, I've had you, I think, 3 or 4 times. You're one of my favorite people to be on the show. And it's interesting because I was thinking about something as I was getting ready to have our conversation, and you'll be filling in these blanks. Emma, you're in an industry, your craft, your trade, your profession is not one that one would say physical therapists are trendsetters. You know, that's yeah, it sounds funny. You almost gotta laugh when I say it, right? I've never heard anybody going around saying, man, they're entrepreneurs on steroids. You wouldn't believe how trendsetter. But you have become an entrepreneur trendsetter. You really have, and I think that's what's so fascinating about the story. So I know it's a long story now, but please, many of the people, they haven't seen the earlier shows. Give us kind of a rundown of from, where you started to where you are now. And then we're going to go back and we're going to fill in the blanks on details. But set us the stage, Emma.
Okay. Oh, thanks, Laurie. I love being on here, as you know, and it's such a pleasure whenever you ask me. And the answer is always yes. So you kind of just don't have to ask, just tell me the date and I'll be here. So, and thank you for that lovely introduction. Yeah, I've just celebrated 5 years full time in my own business. In end of October, beginning of November of this year, and I just can't believe that the time has just absolutely flown. So, I've been a physical therapist for 30 years. I had my 30-year college reunion earlier this year as well, and again, I mean, my goodness, so much has happened in that time. I was very much a hospital therapist, a hospital-based therapist, but always had my own clinic on the side. It was very much sort of my little hustle, my little side gig, if you like. But 5 years ago, it became the full-time, my full-time business. And so I did jump, and we after I jumped, we started hearing all about this virus that was heading around Asia and things like that. And obviously at the time we didn't think it was going to affect us. It was so far away, it was never going to affect us. And then of course everyone knows what happened. Yeah. So I very quickly had to shift and pivot. So I had a typical physical therapy clinic. If you've ever had physical therapy and you've been to a clinic, that's what I had. We were in the process of actually shifting from one location to another when lockdown happened.
I remember that.
Yeah. And that at the time it felt horrendous, but actually it couldn't have been better because I was not tied into a lease, which Laurie helped me with, because I was just about to sign a lease on a new place, and I put the figures in front of Laurie, and I will forever be so grateful for her saying to me, "You can't afford it," and she saved me from signing that lease. So I was in a temporary space, had no lease, which was phenomenal, obviously for what then transpired. But I very much thought I was going to end up with 2 locations, because the temporary location where we were wanted us to stay. The new location we were moving to wanted us there. They were both gyms, so we were working inside gyms. And I thought, hey, I'm going to end up with 2 locations here. And I remember at the time having a conversation with another business coach who works with physical therapy clinic owners. And I was sitting telling him this really excitedly, saying, "Oh, I've got this place and they want to keep us. And this one is waiting for us to go. It's going to be so amazing. And I think this is what I should do." And he just sat back in his chair, folded his arms, and was like, "Should you?" And that was just like a pattern interrupter for me, because I was just going along this road. And he just stopped me in my tracks and actually made me think, should I? And I started to realize, well, then I would have 2 locations, 2 sets of staff, 2 sets of financials, 2 sets of headaches, me running around like a crazy person, probably in between those, plus picking my kids up from school and whatever else I was doing. And I started to go, you know what, actually, I've really enjoyed being at home. I was one of those rare people who actually really enjoyed lockdown. I really enjoyed being at home. And I think it's because it was so different to how my life was before, because it was go, 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 go. I would go from the hospital to the clinic to pick the kids up, get them home, get them in bed, do it all again the next day. And, being out of the door at 6 a.m. in the morning, not getting home until 6 or 7 at night, and just I felt like I was on the treadmill or the hamster wheel. And COVID stopped me from doing that. And it just allowed me to think, what do I want? And I started to realize I don't want a physical clinic. I don't want to have to be somewhere at a certain time. I want more freedom in my life. I want to be able to be there for my boys. I want to be able to go to the school concert if I want. I want to be able to go to the school awards ceremony that they only tell you about on a Friday and it's on the Monday. But if I was working for somebody else, I couldn't do that, which was part of the reason I left the hospital job. But also, if I had a location, again, I'm going to be tied to that. I'm going to have restrictions, and I wanted more freedom. And I had started to see how my job could change. And I had started to see that, actually the niche that I work in lends itself very well to working virtually and to working remotely and working at home. I'm sitting here in my slippers right now.
Yeah.
And And I love that.
And Emma, we're going to go in and continue with this story, but there's so many gems you said. I'd like to stop and bring those to the audience attention for a second because it's just beautiful. I mean, once again, as I said at the beginning, physical therapy and many of these different professions, you don't think out of the box. You just pretty much got it set up. I'm going to do this, we're going to do that. You're either going to do it A, B, or C. That's it. It's A, B, or C, and that's how you go about it. So by nature, you never would think on a different pathway. So one of the things, I mean, I was writing down little notes that I wanted to come back and focus on. One of the things that I think we can never hear enough people say to us when telling a story is that it was a horrendous thing, but it turned out to be the best. Emma, I try to go back and remind myself of that all the time because it's so hard to focus on that when we feel like we're in the horrendous thing. But if
Mhm.
we really are able to, we will realize that most of the horrendous things, not all, but most of them turn out to be the best, when they're a situation that we can adjust to, right? And so it's just especially in business to understand that when things aren't working out in a company, changing modality of whatever that may be may turn out to be the best thing. Now, that comes back into, and all these words went together. Should I? What should I do? What do you want? I don't think we stop and ask those questions enough with a full creativity, imagination, and freedom to dream. We do, and then we dream within our pathways, going back to the original pathways. I know when I took NLP, we learned that the minute you hear in your head, you should do something, you always ask the question, and this is where we would be taught in a therapy session if I was working with somebody and I heard him say I should, we would word it not as direct as I'm doing, but we would say, according to whom? Because when we say I should, it's usually a voice in our head of something else telling us. And then I always like to say, if we follow the should, we can should all over ourselves, right? And so, yeah, I know that's one of my favorite. Don't should all over yourself, right? But I think that with 2025 around the corner, what a wonderful invitation for everybody to just stop with what they're doing and ask, what do I want? And then, like you said, the next words that I wanted to bring out is you said, what I was doing was conducive to this. And so you can't say, well, I want to be this, but it doesn't pay, but that's what I want to do. You have to have some reality of intertwining things. You know what I mean? You have to have some base of reality. But what I think is interesting, and I do say that COVID benefited all to come full circle on my thoughts about what you shared so far, is if it did anything positive, it got people to stop, to think, to look. And I think it also got people to question and question everything. And that's a beautiful thing. So I just want to thank for this story you told so far, but I just wanted to go through some of those because I think that as New Year's resolutions come around the corner, look at what we think we should do. Look at what we want. Look at what we're doing. Look at how we can change it. And believe me, guys, as Emma continues with the story, hence why I wanted to stop here, you will see, especially if you never heard the story, from a traditional physical therapist go into a room and see people, you became not only a trendsetter, but that stopping of the should led you down pathways that you would have never, ever even imagine. So hopefully I didn't lose your train of thought. I wanted to just state those beautiful things. Continue with your story.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just as a little side note, I was reading a story last night about the Galapagos Islands. Like totally random, totally different. But one of the things that, and it was just a fictional story, one of the things that I was reading was a quote from Charles Darwin. And so often, we hear survival of the fittest.
Right.
You've got to be fit, you've got to be strong. But actually, they gave a slightly different quote. And what Charles Darwin saw was that it wasn't the strongest and it wasn't the most intelligent that thrived. It was those most adaptable to change. And I think
Yes.
that really sums up entrepreneurs.
Yes.
That's what we have to do all the time.
I don't know if I'll be able to remember this verbatim, but I'll give it a try because it was something, once again, I seem to be talking from my NLP training a lot today, but it said in any system of machines or humans, the element with the greatest range of variability will be the controlling element. And I learned that back in my, late 20s, and it's so true. And that's where, going back to small companies and something I talk about all the time, we hear about the behemoth companies, the legacy situations where they can't move, they can't change, they can't adapt. We're the opposite, man. We can go to sleep and wake up and be a different company in the morning, but what is stopping people from fully engaging and participating in such a awesome ability is they mentally get stuck to their process. I'm a company, I sell this product, and I'm like, no, you're an entrepreneur. So it is our mental, our ego, our emotion, our fear that is attaching us to business models and not allowing to be agile when we, by infrastructure wise, can compete like crazy because of this agility.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think that's what kept me at the hospital for so long, because that was so much my comfort zone. You know, I could do what I was doing with my eyes closed. It was just, it was easy and it was comfortable. But I knew that something had to change, something had to give. I was not happy with how I was living my life. I was not happy with how I was living my life. And I love my job. I love my profession. I love the people I work with. My boss was amazing. You know, it wasn't that I was in an awful environment. I was absolutely not. But something just wasn't quite right for me. And to make that jump was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, because I had to stop being that person in order to become the person that I wanted to be and needed to be.
And you know what, from an outside perspective of knowing you through this whole process and watching you, do you know what okay, this is my statement, not yours. You could say no, Lori, but you know what I think that something is? You know what I see so different in you from back then? It's a level of excitement, creativity, and spark that you now engage. I mean, you always were this, very vivacious, alive person. That is so true, right? But you were more when you talked about work, okay, I'm going to do this and then we're going to expand and this makes sense. Now it's like all walls have come down, and I'm doing a precursor to what you're going to say. Maybe I'll write a book, maybe I'll go to Wimbledon, maybe I'll do this, maybe I'll do a video, maybe, oh, I'm international now. That was not, so you have become larger than large in your imagination, because I think when you were forced to say, well, how do I handle this situation? Where's money coming in? What do I do about it? Well, this is perfect for the rest of the story. When you were forced to say, what am I going to do now? You drew from that inner imagination and creativity to figure out just what will I do now? And then you unleash that animal, and that animal's been going ever since. But that's my outside perspective, is the amount of energy and excitement and just raw creativity that now comes through you, allowing you to really go in all these pathways you have that you wouldn't even came up with the idea before.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely true. And I can remember my older son saying to me years ago, I said to him, he was talking about something. I said, oh, I love how you think outside the box. And, which obviously a very common phrase a lot of people say. And he just looked at me and he said, Mommy, there is no box.
Isn't it, kids? I know. I love that. I love that. You know what, Sadie? Can you capture that? Just say, there is no box. You don't need to think outside the box. There is no box. And Sadie, try to remember that, or anybody in the audience, remember that one. Let's start 2025 by saying, we don't need to think outside the box. There is no box. I love that, Emma.
I put it in caps in the chat. That really is, it's in caps.
Awesome.
Thanks, Sadie. Yeah, and that was kind of the realization that I had to come to in lockdown, because here I am, a physical therapist. I make money when I put my hands on people,
Right.
and all of a sudden I can't touch them. I can't be in the same room as them. So it's like, okay, what do we do now? 2 kids to feed, and the whole thing. So I did start to look outside the box, and I did start to look outside the norm of, okay, this is what you do. This is the path that you are on. It's like, actually, no, let me look around and let me see what other options there are. I very quickly realized that, I've been just so reliant on essentially one stream of income. I was doing some Pilates classes. We shifted everybody online overnight. So it wasn't like there was a gap when I was kind of twiddling my thumbs going, hey, what do I do? We shifted everybody because I'd already started doing some telehealth with people who were too far away from the clinic. Again, being quite specialized, people would reach out from further away. So I'd started dabbling in telehealth. I knew it worked. And so we just shifted everybody into the telehealth model, which was amazing. We didn't lose any patients. We actually added services because although I was teaching Pilates classes at the time, which again, I shifted obviously from in person to being online, we added in fitness classes too, because we didn't want anybody to feel isolated. Some of our clients would come and see us pretty much from a social element as well, you know, people who lived alone, and I didn't want anyone to feel isolated, even though we were all socially isolating. And so we added in fitness classes. So now we have a fitness class every single day of the week is how we started. We had Pilates classes 2 or 3 days a week. And I was seeing all my patients and it was working great. And I was looking at my outcomes from when I was seeing people in the clinic to when I was seeing people virtually, and the outcomes were identical.
That's the interesting part. And we got to mention, so you
It.
have a specialty in physical therapy that you're known for. So let's bring that in so people got that understanding.
Yeah. So I am the tennis elbow queen.
I
And
love
so so when somebody called me that, I was like, yes, I am claiming that. So so that has kind of evolved to be my brand. 80% of the patients that I work with have tennis elbow, and they find me for that. The other 20% are when their elbow is under control and they say to me, do you do backs? I've got this knee thing, I've got this hip thing. And so I can obviously help them with other things too. But because of being so specialized, I mean, I was having people further and further reaching out. I created a Facebook group so that there was a social element for my patients, so that they could talk to other people who were in the same situation as them. They could, again, not feel alone, having this sense of connection. And what I didn't realize, setting up a Facebook group for my patients, essentially, so they could all communicate, well, then anybody on Facebook can find it. Yeah. And so I don't know how many countries we're in now with the Facebook group, but I have almost 4,000 people all over the world who are in that group. Yeah.
That's amazing. See, and that's what I love about your story too. It's like so many people, I want to express this one correct. So I hope I get it, because I've been trying to get people to hear what I'm saying. People sit back and they get in this mode where they say, I got to figure out how am I going to go about this? And then I'm going to build this company, and then I'm going to do this. And they're doing it all in their head. And I'm saying, in little country town where I grew up, you know, someone started a little tiny store. They sold a few things. Then they found out what people liked buying. And then the store got really packed and crowded. So they made another little store somewhere. They kind of were just responding and to what was happening and coming up with new ideas, versus people thinking that they're going to come up with, oh, and then we're going to have 5 locations, and they haven't even moved forward in the idea. So too much of our entrepreneurs are falling prey to this Hollywood venture capital concept of planning, versus what you did is you're like, I want everybody to be able to talk to each other if they're suffering. Okay, I'll start a Facebook. And then it turned out to be one of your biggest marketing methods to bring in new people. So if we just start watching and observing and having an awareness and seeing opportunity and going after that opportunity one little bite size at a time, you have no idea where you're going to end up. Like you're saying, you're now international. As we keep on unraveling the story, you'll see how every action, I mean, Emma, from an outsider, there is a pattern that you follow. You just kind of sit there, you go after things, you have a kind heart, you want to achieve something, you go, what's happening over here? Oh, well, let me try this. And then you go down the pathway, and it's been success over success over success, because you're responding to what is actually happening, not a movie you're playing in your head that possibly could down the road.
Yes. Yeah. I think you're right. I mean, we added in the fitness classes, you know, back when lockdown literally started, and we're still now doing those fitness classes, you know, almost 5 years later now. We do fitness classes 3 times a week. We do Pilates classes 3 times a week. I have this group of ladies who have been coming, almost forever, now, and they come for the social element as well as the exercise, and it's great. And so, I then kind of look at them. It's like, okay, what do they need next? There's been a lot of talk recently about balancing hormones, wellness, longevity. I'm adding in a membership element with regards to that, to wellness, longevity. We're going to look at a different topic each month through 2025. And we're going to go on this journey together of improving our wellness and improving our health and well-being, looking at these different topics. And it's something that I want to do. It's something they want to do. It's extra value I can add to them. It improves their lives. It improves their well-being. And then they start inviting their friends and their family in, and it's going to grow that way. But it's looking at what is the need? How can I help people more? And through 2020, as the Facebook group started to grow and as people started reaching out, I'm a physical therapist licensed in California, so I treat patients who are in California, and I can see anybody in California, no matter where they are. I have clients sort of north of San Francisco, in San Diego, and everywhere in between. But outside of California, I'm not allowed to do physical therapy because I'm not licensed in different states. So when people started reaching out, it's like, well, how can I help these people? And as you said, Laurie, that's where the second business came into being.
I love this story.
So this is basically an education business. It basically covers everything except the physical therapy. So the physical therapy clinic is still going on, but everything else comes under the other umbrella. So I looked at, well, how can I help these people? They need the same information. So I very much sort of had a script of things that I say to patients. At different points, people needed the same sort of information. And I found myself saying these things over and over again. I thought, well, how about I say it into a camera instead of saying it to a patient? So that's what I did. My husband took the kids out for an afternoon, and I filmed, I think, about 20 videos that basically took people.
Real expensive equipment, and you invested all this money like everybody wants to do, right? Tell us that story. Yes, this is what's great.
I filmed it on my phone.
I really want to, give this headline to the audience. Emma had an idea. She had a thought. She found the most inexpensive way to create it and ran with it. You didn't have analysis by paralysis thinking it had to be perfect. That's what I wanted to say. Continue.
Yeah. I think part of that is a necessity as well, especially during lockdown. Parents will understand this. My husband took the kids out for an afternoon. It's like, oh, precious time. It's like, how much can I get done in these 3 hours? Let's go. And so I put a dining room chair on top of the table. I had a binder open on top of the chair, and I wedged my phone into that binder, and I spoke into the camera. And that's what I did. And I literally banged them out. I don't think any of them needed a second take. It was just like boom, boom, but it just banged them out. I think you can hear the dog padding around in the background on some of them. Like, let's go. Let's just keep it going. So I did all of those, and I just uploaded them onto YouTube, which is free to do.
Yeah.
You have them unlisted, so it's not like everybody can find them. And then when somebody says, hey, how can you help me? I was like, well, you can go through this sort of phase 1 of my course here. And I had it set up through email. So at the time, and I still do have a CRM software for emails. And basically what that allowed me to do is to automate the email. So I could put somebody into that sequence. They get the first email, it's got the first video in. When they've watched that video, because the software can tell me that, it would automatically send them the next one. When they watch that video, it would automatically send them the next one. So I was able to set that up, and it was relatively inexpensive, that software. I think at the time I was paying about $50 a month, maybe not even. And there are free softwares that can do that as well. MailerLite is one, MailChimp is another. So there are free versions. If you've got small numbers of emails, you can do that for free too. So I was able to do that, and I sort of started testing it out, and and people seem to like it. They get to the end, they say, okay, I need the next lot now. So, okay, I had the first 2 lots done. I needed another 2 lots doing. So as people needed them, I started creating them, and it's just kind of grown from there. So I think we're at about 37, maybe even 40 countries now. I mean, like literally, I mean, obviously every continent except Antarctica, not quite there yet.
Yet.
But it's made it accessible for people. And the people that have gone through it, again, they have a separate Facebook group for the people who are just going through the program. So there's extra resources in there. I go live once a week to answer questions. I added in a coaching element to that. So they get 12 weeks of group coaching with me. So we jump on Zoom once a week and they can ask questions. So as they have said, oh, it would be good to have this, or I really wish we had that. It's kind of grown and evolved over time to include these other things. And then I would get people to say, oh, well, I can't afford that. And so then the book came about. So I wrote the book. I've probably been writing the book for about 5 years before lockdown even happened. And I would write a chapter here, and then it would get left for ages. And then I'd write another chapter there, and it would get left for ages. And I used lockdown because I basically got back 10 hours of my week because I wasn't taking kids to and from school. And so I used that time, and I'm actually really proud of that. I'm proud I used that time.
I'm proud of you too. I was just watching and being amazed at all you were doing.
Yeah, so I used that time to actually write the book, and the book went out. And that was in 2021. The book came out. Well, this is actually the second edition, hence the 2.0. 2.0, the second edition came out earlier this year. It came out in May of this year, because even in that short time, 3 years, there had been lots of updates. There's tons of new medical research coming out. I geek out on the research. The first book probably had about 70 to 80 references in. Everything I teach is evidence-based, so there's research to back it up. So all the references were in the first book. I've added an additional 100 references to the second book because there's so much new research that has come out over the last 3 years. So the principles are essentially the same, but we've had massive differences in nutritional knowledge, nutritional supplementation knowledge, different things like that. There have been some nuances. So I updated the book. The book came out, the second edition came out earlier this year. And it was like, well, this is for people who can't afford the program. And there are 3 different price points for the book. You can get it on Kindle. That's less than $10. Yep. There is a paperback version that is, I think, about 25, 30 bucks. And then there's a hardback version that's $35. So it just gives people that option. There's a low ticket option, there's sort of a mid ticket option, and then there's a high ticket option. If people want to work with me one-on-one, there is that availability. There is that option. It's just looking at what people ask for.
Yeah, there's so much there, and I'm going to unpack that. I want to go back to one thing that I love talking about as well with you as an example. I really do. And that is your simple approach even to legal structures. You had the physical therapy as a sole prop. It remains a sole prop. We had a discussion at one point about the need to possibly create another company. Everybody wants and I'll set it up this way as you explain it. People call me up, and I have this, it's amazing, Emma, on a weekly basis. I have these questions be sent to me. Well, I'm planning on creating a company. I haven't launched anything yet, but I'm thinking of umbrella one, and I'm going to have an LLC, and I'm going to have, it's just crazy stuff that they're hearing from social media. And I'm like, why don't you just be a sole prop a little bit and see where it goes? Because that's not what they're hearing. And I tell them, and this is going to launch into what you're going to explain, there is a good time and a good reason to incorporate, but we don't incorporate just because we have an idea or somebody tells us our assets are going to be safer or says something on YouTube. Understanding legal structures when and why is when we incorporate. And you had a really good reason. And that's when I said, Emma, I think you need to have a discussion with a lawyer that specializes in this and tell them why I said that and what it became of that.
Yeah. So it was very much because I have a license. I'm licensed in California as a physical therapist. And so as somebody who is licensed, there are very clear guidelines on what I can do and what I cannot do. And I didn't want to go into any gray area with that. I didn't want to, well, I'm helping all these people all over the world. Well, I'm not licensed to do that as a physical therapist. And so I knew that there needed to be separation of these two things because I wanted to protect my license. I wanted to protect my clinic. I've been a physical therapist for 30 years. You know, I'm very proud of my profession, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't do anything that I wasn't allowed to do. So I spoke with a lawyer who is also, or she was a physical therapist before she went into legal. She deals a lot with people who are in a similar situation to me. They're starting to go into the online world and look at how can we help more people? How can we get our message out there? And so it became very clear that I needed to keep these things separate. And in order to do that, I've got my clinic over here. I needed an entity over here that everything else could sit underneath. And that's when I developed the LLC. We came up with that, and you obviously helped me through every step of the way with that, Laurie, which was great. And so that has now been almost 3 years. It'll be 3 years in January.
And you know, it's so funny. I remember when you called it Emma Green Programs, that name suited what you were doing at the time, but it really, I mean, you grew into Emma Graham because you're really about the programs now. And then a little bit of there's the mechanics. I want to go back to the books for a second on the mechanics because I want to share also with the audience in case, like you explained how you did the videos, in case they're wanting to write a book or something along that line. And interestingly, Emma, I first, wrote a couple books back in, I looked at the date, I was amazed, like 2008, 2011, right? And I had all these products back at the time, and I haven't really done anything. And I had some additional books I did, but I never put them on Amazon or iTunes because they had a lot of charts, finance, right? And at the time, it was hard to get them on a Kindle, and I was doing ebooks. So my goal for 2025, I just updated my website, is to get my books on Amazon and iTunes now that I haven't, and write some more and get my website back up to selling books. I've just been too busy making money to do these other things that I have had, right? So in that process, I had to relearn everything because the process of publishing on Kindle has changed from 2008. I've left the other books that have been there forever just sitting there doing nothing, but suddenly for some reason they're being bought by a lot in Europe. I don't even know why. I'm done nothing with them. But what I have learned in my last month of investigation is publishing has become easier. They're not even requiring an ISBN on iTunes anymore. I could easily transform my ebook into a EPUB file, and it would hold the charts where before it wouldn't. So it's kind of been a game changer of simplicity. From 2008, I was, trend setting, trying to buck the system, get the downloads to work. And now I'm like, oh, I've put myself 2 months to get this done. I was like, oh no, I need a week and that's it. And I'll have all this published again. So what I wanted to say to people is publishing is easier. We have more content than we believe. And even if publishing isn't for sales, it can be used for marketing and credibility. So tell us a little bit. You've got a hard copy, a soft copy, I guess it would be,
Yeah.
a Kindle. For someone just starting out, see, to me, the hard copy and the soft copy seems like that's like really a harder road to go, and the Kindle's easier, but you may know. So if somebody says, you know what, maybe I'll publish a book or a pamphlet or use it, what kind of mechanics can you give us? Where are you publishing? Did you have a editor? How did you go about it, I should just say?
Yeah, great question. And you're absolutely right. I agree with you. I think everybody has a book in them. Everybody can write a book. And it has made it so easy now that anybody can publish. So I knew I could physically write the book. I had chapters here, there, and everywhere, and I knew I could pull that together. I didn't know any more about that. I didn't know how to format a book. I didn't know how to publish. I didn't know the logistics.
Right.
And so being very green at this, I'm like, okay, I've typed my book out. I've kind of got this. I need an editor, right? That's what I need. So I'm in a group called the Female Entrepreneur Association. It is a group based in the UK. And I went into that group. Well, obviously they're global, but they're based in the UK. I went into that group, said, I need an editor. I've written a book. And, a couple of people reached out to me, and a lady from New Zealand reached out to me, and she said, I can help you. I'm a book mentor. And I was like, what the heck's a book
Book
mentor?
mentor. Yeah, yeah.
And so she said, well, what she does is she works with editors. So she'll send my book to an editor, get it edited, get it back. She will format my book. She will create the cover. She'll create the back cover. She'll make sure everything is formatted. She talks me through how to get an ISBN. She talks me through how to get it into the Library of Congress. She talks me through the entire process. She found me printers in Los Angeles that could get me my first copies so that I had physical copies to look at. She talked me through uploading it onto Amazon. I mean, every single step of the way. Things that I didn't even know I needed, she would help me with. And so to work with her, so her name is Lisa Ellis, and she's based in New Zealand. And you can imagine there's a time difference there as well. And but she's very used to working with people in the US and Europe. And she was phenomenal. I could not have got my first book published without her help and without her assistance. She's been in books for 25 years. You know, she knows the system inside and out. And she helped me with that. It was such an easy process working with her that a year later, almost to the day, I published a second book. So Get Out of Pain Fast, that came out the second year. Well, then I had 2023 off, and then second edition, that was 2024. I know I've got at least another, I think 3 books in me, maybe even 4. And so once you've done the first one, it definitely gets easier. Lisa has helped me with all of my books just because she knows how I work, and she keeps me on track. Sometimes if I don't have a deadline, things just kind of go.
Yeah.
She's very good at keeping you accountable to the things. She's very good at making you do the things that you actually don't want to do, and, you know, kind of getting to that finish line. So I would highly recommend, working with somebody who knows that. I do have friends who have worked with different people who have done that and have not had fabulous results. I think I was really lucky to find Lisa. And as I say, she's helped me put 3 books out. And so if you want, if anybody wants her details, obviously reach out to me. I can certainly put you in contact. But to have somebody who knows what they're doing. So for the second edition and for the pain book, she got me in with Ingram Sparks as well. So not only is it on Amazon, Ingram Sparks is a global company that libraries use to get their books from, smaller independent bookstores get their books from. So it's just looking at these different avenues, again, just for getting the information out there.
Yeah, and speaking of different avenues, it's a perfect parlay to what I was going to say next. Because once again, being an outside observer, what I started seeing is all of these things that you had put in place, the face group, the books, all the videos now, and then you've got the one-on-one with the Pilates. They all started working together and had a synergistic effect where the energy started just escalating. It was like a wheel that started turning on its own, and then opportunities started coming forth. And so where I want to go, and then I wanted you to tell the Wimbledon story, because that's how that came about, is that once we start putting these little pieces in place, once again, why you can't sit and imagine your future when you haven't even gotten your idea in action at all, is that once they start coming, they take us and they become a power within themselves. And that's what I see. I see now that you're actually riding the wave. Before, you were pushing the water, trying to make the wave, right? And now I feel like you're riding it, not meaning you're not doing anything, meaning it's got its own force and you're going along and you're on a higher level going, where's the opportunity now? Instead of down here, you're sitting on top of this wave of energy that's bringing you multiple revenue streams, multiple opportunities. So before we end, we can't go with going, Emma becomes famous. How does Emma become famous? Yeah, because I really do. I mean, not many people could say, and then at Wimbledon. So tell us about, how does the tennis elbow queen become famous?
Yeah. So I think like if I go back a little bit, one of my patients had said to me, I've got this friend, you need to talk with him. He's got a podcast and it's a golf podcast, and you should go on there. You should talk about golfer's elbow and tennis elbow, because golfers get that too. So I went onto this podcast, did that. Then another podcast reached out to me and they said, oh, we heard you on this podcast. Can you come on our podcast? Yeah, that'd be great. And so I started to go on podcasts and I started to get a bigger reach from that perspective. Well, then that podcast led to another one, and the Tennis Files, which was the podcast that I then did, has a tennis summit. And so every year they have a tennis summit. There about 12 to 14,000 tennis players attend this virtual summit. Well, I've done that now for the past 3 years. I promoted my second edition book at the tennis summit this year, instant bestseller on Amazon in 4 different countries. And so it does snowball, it escalates. So then I was going back to the UK for a visit, and some of my clients who I was working with were in Iceland. They were going to come and meet me in London, and we went to Wimbledon because my book was going to go into the World Tennis Library at Wimbledon, and they came with me, and we have pictures of us on, by center court and in the library, and just I mean it was just such an amazing day. So the first edition is in the tennis library. The second edition is not there yet, but that's planned for next year.
Yeah, and it will be. It definitely will be. And like I said, going back to what I said at the beginning, I mean, anybody listening to you, the excitement, and you're like a little kid that just looks out of the crib and says, wow, there's a whole world. Where it's going to go next? What's going to happen next? And that was not the Emma that was, well, I think I'll need another location. I may get staff. I mean, the sky's the limit when you start putting all of this together. You can really dream big, but you have to, actualize it little by little and see what comes your way. Because I don't proclaim to know what it is, but I personally believe there's some mysterious force that when we start doing things with a excitement, a creativity, another way of saying it, we go without fear, we live our life fearlessly. When we do that and we start dreaming and put energy towards things, things happen. Coincidences, if you want to call it, I don't believe in coincidences. All of a sudden you meet the right person at the right time, and before you know it, you look up and you're in a whole different world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is so true, and it all comes from that action. And again, if I go back to what was it that I wanted, again, leaving the hospital, I didn't really know at that time. I knew I wasn't happy with the way things were, and I knew something had to change. And I thought, going into my own business, I thought being in my clinic 100% of the time, I thought that was what I wanted. And it was quite interesting, because I very quickly realized, within probably 4 to 6 weeks, that I was like, this is not it. I was going into the clinic every day. I wasn't going to the hospital. I was going into the clinic every day. And obviously this is before lockdown happened. I was like, yeah, this is not it. Oh no, what am I missing? What is it that I'm looking for? And I didn't really know what that was. And then obviously, COVID definitely showed me the path. But one of the things that I've done sort of, in the last sort of 4 to 5 years, again, through the Female Entrepreneur Association, is they talk about writing out your perfect day. And I would encourage people to do that. I think this is the perfect time of year to do it. Just sit, give yourself a couple of minutes, just sit, maybe with your eyes closed, and just kind of let everything go, and just imagine what your perfect day would be. What time do you wake up? When you open your eyes, what do you see? What do you do when you first get up? What are you, just like literally write out your day and write it out. Write it. It's so powerful when we actually handwrite ourselves. Write it out the entire day. And I was going through this exercise with the Female Entrepreneur Association probably a couple of years ago now. And I was writing out my perfect day. And I looked at it and I was like, that's what I do every day. And I was like, I am living my perfect life. I'm like, I live where I want to live. I'm in the house that I want to I look out and I see the things that I'm doing the things that I want to do. I'm living my perfect life. But I really encourage you to do that, because if you can write it out, and then even if you can speak it out as well, I know sometimes like we feel a bit silly kind of doing that, but to hear our own voice say those words is so powerful. And what you're doing is you're planting the seeds in here. And whilst we've got those seeds planted in our brain, we're then going to be looking for those opportunities. And it might be it's going to be subconsciously, but you're going to start to find those opportunities. You're going to start to see those things, and it will snowball from there.
I completely, agree. And I've had a life that I've written. I have journaled for years. I always have to sit down and write and get feelings on recorded, right? I've also been into vision boards, and it's just been my entire life since I've been in my 20s, right? And one of the things that I personally started doing, and I don't even remember when or why, but it changed the way I looked at things, because in my 20s, especially, I'm 60 now, so in my 20s, we were taught we were supposed to sit down and write goals. I want to make 1 million, I want to drive, that was what we were supposed to do, right? It never felt right for me. I'm not saying anything's against that. I'm just saying for me, it just didn't feel like there was a connection. Like it was a list I made and I just didn't feel connected. Well, I started decades ago where I didn't say, what do I want? I didn't end it there. I said, what do I want to experience? So I might say, I want to experience money to be able to have this experience. I might want to experience freedom. I might want to experience, like right now, I've been working on this, which, I'm definitely getting a lot. I want to experience creativity, massive amounts of creativity, and so I've gotten more into the emotion or the frequency that I wanted to experience. And I've gotten where I've said, okay, I'm not going to say, I want this. I want it to have a red bow. I want it to be this way with this packaging and this type of wrapping, because then I would only look out in the universe for the red bow with this packaging and this. I would not look for what gave me the experience. And sometimes, many times, we receive in our life a different chain of events, a different actualization of what we wanted than what our original picture was. And it's often even better than we would have ever imagined. So my summary in that is, absolutely, I agree with everything you said. And then also saying, well, what do you want to experience? I think it also explains the why do you want it, and it helps in the manifestation of it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree. It really does come down to that feeling. How do you want to feel?
Yes.
How do you want to feel every day? And again, I'll just quickly go to I attended an online entrepreneur event, and this was very much for beginning entrepreneurs, people who maybe wanted to leave their job and um, dive into the online world and create things. And they were talking about how people are not happy in their jobs. And I was kind of like, well, I'm pretty happy. I'm kind of happy with what I do. And nobody was experiencing joy. And I'm like, I experience joy every single day.
Yeah.
And looking at sort of the differences in how some people are living their lives and they're not happy. And that was me. When I would leave the house at 6 a.m. every morning, I would put the key into the door to lock the door, to leave to go to the hospital. And I would say to myself, I hate this. And I didn't hate my job. I don't hate my profession. I didn't hate the people I work with. I hated that I had to leave my house at 6 a.m. every morning. My kids were still asleep and I had to do that. And that's the bit that I did not enjoy. And that's what I needed to change. And then to know that you can create the life that you want to live, the life that you love, and experience joy and experience whatever it is you want to experience. It's all out there for us, and we should grab it with both hands.
And that resonated with me because it was almost 10 years ago that I said, I love what I do. I love the consulting aspect. I love everything about it. I don't want to be in one place. I don't want to be in LA, and I don't want to do that what I'm doing, but I still want to do it. It was like I kept going in my head, there's no way, because you need to be in front of clients. You're a CFO. You need to do that. You can't do this kind of stuff. How are you going to do this business consulting and stuff like that? And I kept asking, and then finally, as you know, took the plunge, and I've not been in any one place for very long, for a very long time. And yet my company and my business has not missed a beat. It's like I've continued to work, and it's been consistent, and my life and my professional life is consistent. But personally, I got to experience all the dreams and the way I wanted to live my life. And I could have done it earlier if I would have just believed that it could have been possible. It wasn't until I was just frustrated enough that I said, fine, I won't make anything. I'm just going to do this. I'm exaggerating right now, right? But I think the first thing is to understand every single thing is possible. Just, I always say we can have everything, we just can't have everything now. We got to have a process to get there. And as you said, and this is where I want to come to the ending of the show, is that the end of the year, just by its way of being, is a wonderful opportunity to sit back, relax, take some thoughts in, write some dreams, analyze what you want to experience, say, hey, if you're exactly doing what you want to do and do more, put out, I want more, I want to change, I want to develop this, what's working, what's not working, and believe every single thing is possible. You just have to get in alignment with what reality offers. We're still in the monopoly 3D dimension. We got to make sure people are wanting to buy what you're wanting to do, right? And from there, just see what's there and start taking little incremental steps towards it and get the feedback. Don't sit there with paralysis saying, I'm going to dream of this empire I'm going to create. Just sell one little thing, try one little thing, be a sole prop for a little bit, take little tiny steps and get feedback, look at that opportunity and expand from there. And Emma, to me, I've said this so many times to you, you are going to have another book, but it's going to be about what we talked about during the show. You're going to be writing about all the lessons you learned and how you redefine who you are and how you see the world in order for the world to provide to you what you were envisioning inside. And I think that you are just such an inspiration on that level. And I thank you for telling your story once again. And thank you for always offering to be on the show, because I am never going to have a year where Emma isn't on the show a couple times, because I think it's something that the audience really needs to hear. And you in the audience know Emma's a frequent flyer. She's with us almost every single week in the chat, so you can always reach out to her then. Emma, your final thoughts as you can end 2024 with me?
Yeah, totally agree with everything you said, Laurie. This is a fantastic opportunity right now. We've never lived through such a time where everybody has amazing opportunity. This is, technology has really, I think, become quite it's leveled the playing field. Technology is available to anybody, and anybody can use it in any way that they want, and create whatever it is that they want to create. So yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, well, I'm going to have Sadie come back to close us out, but I have to say, to everybody that's been with me throughout the year, thank you so much for tuning in. I see these numbers and see you here, and it's awesome. My goal in 2025 is to bring more programs that provide you the information you need to be successful, the inspiration you need to be successful, and stay on you about knowing your numbers, okay? I'm not letting up on that. You hit that link, you join me in 2025, and I'm going to be insisting you know your profit margins, and you know that even though it's about inspiration and creativity and everything, it still comes down to, can you buy a quart of milk? Because we got to buy a quart of milk too, okay? So I just want to thank everybody for being with me every week, and I look forward to an exciting 2025 with you guys. So make sure you hit that link and come back. Sadie, your words for the end show for the year?
Oh my God, I think I feel like a little, like, what is it, a little mist in the corner of my eyes. But I mean, all of it, all of it. I was like, you know what? I'm like, I get why we had Emma on, because we were like, oh, how do we end it out? And I was like, no, I'm like, it's like a perfect little encapsulation where it's like, it's all about inspiration, but you're like, oh, what is it? I'm like, that's right. At the end of the day, can you buy a quart? I'm like, you're right, Lori, you're right. We have to dream. We have to, have no boxes, but keep it a little bit on the real side at the end of the day.
Very well said. Well, thank you, everybody. Sadie's going to stay behind. Make sure you get Emma's information. Sadie, Sadie, you have Emma's information to put in the chat, right?
Well, you know what? I don't have her most current one, and I didn't feel comfortable putting
Oh,
the email address I have. So, if Emma, if you want to drop in maybe your
in there. I wanted to make sure because I kind of saw and I didn't know. I want to make sure everybody knows how to get in touch with Emma. If you want it to be that way, excellent. So now you guys know how to get in touch with Emma, and you can always start out the next show with the chat. Say, Emma, are you in there? Because she probably will be. Okay, Sadie's gonna stay behind. Make sure that the chat stays live so you can get Emma's information, you get my information, you get the information to hit the link to come and join me next week. So I wish happy holidays to everybody. I wish some time for relaxation, for joy and peace, and for creativity and coming back determining what is going to happen in 2025 because I don't care what's going on around us. We are going to have a great year. We're going to have joy. We're going to create experiences and opportunity, and we're going to take advantage of everything the world is bringing to us. Emma, thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Happy holidays, everybody.
Okay, bye.
Bye. See you next year.